I'm sure some of you were starting to wonder and maybe get into a little bit of a panic, or you're going to start pointing the fingers at me and saying, "You said you were going to do them and then you're not doing them. You suck." Well, rest assured, the Schleg Daddy told you sometime in August we were going to start the team-by-team previews for the 2017 NFL season, and by God, the Schleg Daddy is going to deliver. And yes, I know we've already made it through 3 weeks of the preseason, so it feels like I'm getting a late jump on the game. Actually, if you think about it, this is about the perfect time to actually start doing this because, number one, I've been able to check out pretty much, actually, I think literally every single team thanks to the NFL Network showing all of these replays. At some point in time during the preseason, I've seen all 32 teams in some shape or form during the preseason. On top of that, now making it through 3 preseason games, especially that third important one where the starters play the longest, I've actually been able to see what teams have what players healthy, what teams have what injuries at what areas. So to me, to start the previews a couple weeks ago and then this guy goes down or that guy goes down, it completely invalidates stuff. So we're here. And let's be honest, I'm starting off with the team that, for all intents and purposes, is clearly going about trying to commit one of the biggest intentional Sam Hinkies I've ever seen. This is a complete tank mode for the New York Jets. Let's call it how we see it. Jet fans know it. Non-Jet fans know it. Let's not beat around the bush. Frankly, the motto for this year for the New York Jets is one of 2 things. It's either suck for Sam, meaning suck enough to get the number 1 pick to get Sam Darnold from USC, or be ass for Allen, as in Josh Allen, the intriguing strong-arm gunslinger from Wyoming. It's suck for Sam Darnold or be ass for Josh Allen. That simple. That's what this entire season is about for the New York Jets. The Todd Bowles watch has officially begun, and I would feel like at this moment I'd be remiss if I didn't advise that we all probably feel, is the most likely to be the first head coach fired during the 2017 season. When you talk about prop bets during the NFL season, this would feel like a pretty safe one. And I would be surprised if he wasn't the hands-on favorite for this, because you look at this Jets team and you can see the chickens coming home to roost. This is the price that you pay for trying to shortcut with McCagnon, the general manager, team building. Instead of trying to invest in rebuilding and using years of drafting and shrewd moves here and there, they went very heavily into trade market, very heavily into free agency, got themselves older in a hurry, and frankly, it didn't really pay off. And now when you combine that with years of, frankly, mediocre drafting on defense, but always spending 2 of your first 3 picks on the defensive side of the ball, going back to 2010, that's now 8 straight drafts where you've done so, and combining that with years of complete disregard for drafting and building up the offensive side of the ball, you get what you get, which is the 2017 New York Jets. I mean, there sure could be other contenders for teams that could have the worst record in the league. You could look at the Cleveland Browns. You could look at the San Francisco 49ers. But those 2 teams are at least trying to build something. The New York Jets are trying to tank, which is a really ballsy move because it's most likely going to get the head coach fired and probably, for all intents and purposes, should get the general manager fired. With that said, it is 100,000% the right thing to do. It is the only option the Jets have because the way they've done things for years hasn't worked. They are irrelevant other than being a punching bag anyways. So why not suck and have a purpose for sucking to begin to finally climb yourself out of the hole that your organization has dug for itself for so many years? Like, what else could you think this team is doing? They cut Brandon Marshall, cut Eric Decker, let Ryan Fitzpatrick go. They cut Darrelle Revis. Eric Mangold is gone. David Harris is gone. So many of their notable players, so many of their best players are no longer in the fold. And you're supplementing that by bringing in guys like Josh McCown and Morris Claiborne. Josh McCown and Morris Claiborne. And while you could say Revis Island was sinking into the ocean, he still has to be better than Morris Claiborne, doesn't he? And Josh McCown, you could say he's better than Ryan Fitzpatrick. Is he? Especially at this stage of his career. Is he? I don't know about all that. Because if he was any better than Ryan Fitzpatrick, the Browns would have kept him around for 2017. I'm just saying. So you intentionally don't go into the market very much. And then you come right back around in the draft and spend 2 of your first 3 picks on the defensive side of the ball again for the 8th straight fucking year. The true definition of insanity, as we've heard so often, is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Now, sure, people love the Jamal Adams pick for the Jets, and I understood it, and I didn't mind it because of the leadership that I think he brings, the fact that he has so little bust potential. I expect him to be a foundational franchise type of piece for this organization. But once again, you so criminally neglect the offensive side of the ball. And sure, they drafted guys like Ardarius Stewart, Chad Hansen, Jordan Leggett later on in the draft. You know, but those guys, are any of them sure things? I don't think so. And then in the second round to turn around and take yet another safety, you've let Calvin Pryor go because he was a fucking bust. Another defensive player you took in the first round, not to mention the year before Calvin Pryor, you spent one of your first 2 first-round picks on freaking D. Milner, and he's a complete freaking bust. I know those are different regimes, but ultimately still the same result. Doesn't matter. When you look at this team on the field, what is there to actually be positive about? Well, assuming they keep Matt Forte, and if they're going full tank mode, there's no guarantee of that, but I would anticipate they would, because who the fuck else do they have at this point? Why wouldn't you? A combination of Matt Forte and Bilal Powell. They've got a couple of running backs that are multi-purpose threats, so this team should, in theory, be able to run the football. And God knows they're going to need to run the football, because I don't know how the hell they're going to be able to pass the ball on anybody consistently. On the defensive side of the ball, Leonard Williams is a stud, Muhammad Wilkerson is a stud, so they've got some studs up front. But in terms of question marks, it's pretty much everything else. Their skill talent, you're talking about what, Robbie Anderson is your top receiver? Especially since Enunwa went down with a knee. Then you got what, Sharon Peak, Ardarius Stewart, Chad Hansen? What do you got at tight end, Jordan Leggett? I mean, not saying some of these guys can't play at some point in time in the NFL, but you're expecting them to contribute and contribute big right away? Give me a break. That offensive line, to me, is a bit of a shambles. The linebacking core is less than stellar. The defensive secondary is young with some talent, especially with Adams and May. But I feel like they're desperately wanting for corner talent. That's for damn sure. The bottom line is, when you look at this roster, to me, it's very hard, even with some of the studs that they have there, like Shelton Richardson, if he doesn't have his head up his ass, you know, Jamal Adams, Leonard Williams, Muhammad Wilkerson. They've got some defensive talent, but they've had defensive talent for years, and what the fuck was the difference? Exactly. To me, this is the worst, arguably, roster in the AFC, if not all of the National Football League. In terms of players to watch for this organization, I think on offense, you got to look at Christian Hackenberg. The only thing that saves your season, and especially if you're not smart enough to be able to suck for Sam or be ass for Allen, is that Christian Hackenberg shows something, and I'm already laughing trying to keep a straight face saying that. Let's be real, he ain't showing shit. But at some point in time, you did spend a second-round pick on him, and it was this general manager that drafted him. You've got to give him some tick. Because if you're saying that he's not going to be ready for a second year, then that is just a complete admittal that you didn't know what the fuck you were doing, and as a result had no business drafting the kid, and you have no business having a job as a general manager at the NFL level, and that is that simple. When you are this terrible, and the kid that you took in the second round last year can't be forced to given an opportunity to play to see what the hell he does for the good of the organization long term, that's when you know you've made an evaluatory mistake. On the defensive side of the ball, I look at the 2 safeties, Jamal Adams and Marcus May, and I want to see these 2 guys trying to take ownership of the back end of that secondary. Because if those 2 safeties can come in and be impact players right away, you know, you talk about being good up the middle of your defense and that being a key to teams in the NFL, man. You're talking about Adams and May. You're potentially talking about a safety tandem that could rival some of the best in the National Football League in the future for years to come and be a real point of emphasis of building around for that organization. So I want to see what Jamal Adams does and Marcus Maye, especially because they're going to be in a shitty situation. In terms of looking at this schedule, to me, the two key games for this organization come in weeks 4 and 5. They host Jacksonville and then they travel to Cleveland. Why are those key games? Because realistically, other than maybe they catch somebody in the division napping due to familiarity or whatever the case might be, these are the only two games I look at the schedule and I feel like the Jets have a realistic chance of winning. Come on. My prediction for them, the Jets very likely are going to end up with the number 1 overall pick in the 2018 draft. They're either going 1-15 or 2-14. And I know in previous years, Jets fans and I have went back and forth on things, but come on. I think we could come together at this moment in time and agree that this team absolutely sucks, is intentionally tanking, and ultimately that is best for business. Even though that means your head coach and probably your general manager are going to be shown the door and you've got to start over again in 2018. Sorry, doesn't change the ownership, but you can't win them all. And in this case for the Jets in 2017, they'll be lucky to win any of them. And you know it's true.